Just as the iconic SR-71 Blackbird, the stealthiest jet at the time, was being unveiled to the public, a similar, if not more agile aircraft was undergoing secret testing. And rather than coming from the US Air Force, its development came at the request of the CIA in a project known as Oxcart. On May 31, 1967, the American aircraft taxied at Kajina Air Force Base, Okinawa, Japan, for her maiden flight. Codenamed Black Shield, the mission began with a secret jet taking off in the rain, traveling 1,500 miles through North Vietnamese airspace, and quickly turning home. Lockheed Martin's highly classified A-12 objective was to perform reconnaissance missions while flying at 3 times the speed of sound. Well ahead of its time, and built utilizing groundbreaking material technologies, the A-12 seemed to be the future of modern covert reconnaissance. Development. After the CIA's Project Rainbow failed to reduce radar visibility of the U-2 stealth plane, the agency became interested in a follow-up that could silently snoop over the Soviet Union. By 1957, the Soviet surface-to-air missiles represented a significant threat to the high-altitude U-2 spy plane. Aviation engineers had their suspicions confirmed when the Soviet Union shot down U-2 pilot Gary Powers in 1962. This led to a political crisis between the USSR and the United States. After another U-2 was down during the Cuban Missile Crisis, the risk of continuing to use the plane in the presence of missiles was too great. Many feared escalating tensions could lead to all-out nuclear warfare. Near the end of 1957, preliminary work on the new aircraft design began in Skunk Works, with famed aircraft designer Kelly Johnson leading the effort. Later he would state, quote, "In April 1958, I recall having long discussions with Richard Bissell over the subject of whether there should be a follow-on to the U-2 aircraft. We agreed that there should be one more round, before satellites would make aircraft reconnaissance obsolete for covert reconnaissance." The engineers at Lockheed Skunk Works were tasked with designing an aircraft capable of cruising at supersonic speeds. Their goal was to outmaneuver any incoming missiles. The plane also required an advanced electronic warfare system capable of suppressing enemy missile guidance systems. On top of that, the project needed a sleek airframe with radar-absorbent material to decrease detection likelihood. Kelly Johnson considered 11 concepts for the spy plane, codenamed Archangel. It wasn't until the 12th design that they cracked it. The 12th iteration of the design differed from others. This model used thin metallic protrusions to the jet's sides that decreased its radar profile and improved lift. Because the proposed A-12 was an incredibly advanced project, Lockheed had to investigate and invent new technologies still used to this day. Chief among these new technologies included manipulating titanium. Needing to be more heat-resistant than any prior aircraft, the A-12 required sturdy titanium. Ironically, the global exporter of titanium was the Soviet Union. Therefore, to secure materials, the CIA set up a chain of shell companies under trumped-up contracts to purchase the metal. Once in America, the challenges of working with titanium mounted. The hard metal was almost impossible to shape, so Skunk Works had to build new drill bits and develop a novel hybrid manufacturing process. Their efforts resulted in a one-of-a-kind aircraft capable of flying for 3,000 miles at Mach 3 without refueling. Even after spending most of its fuel, the plane could sustain a cruising altitude of 90,000 feet. Its camera, too, was vastly superior to that of the U-2. The A-12 was both a safer and superior reconnaissance aircraft. Lockheed manufactured 12 of these classified jets, in addition to a 2-seat trainer called Titanium Goose. First flights. In April 1962, the first 2 A-12 took off from Area 51. At the time, the plane was fixed with the less powerful J-75 turbojets. Lockheed entrusted 16 Air Force pilots to test them. The recruits were demilitarized and extensively screened and trained. The 2 newly developed M21 drone carriers were tested. Both the M21 and D21 drones were modeled after the A-12. Unfortunately, during the 4th test in 1966, one of the drones crashed. Although the 2 crew members ejected, both were lost at sea. Subsequently, 4 A-12s were lost to accidents, with 2 pilots also MIA. Finding the right pilots had been a challenge, since the CIA demanded several strict qualifications and considerations. Pilots needed to be shorter than 6 feet and to weigh less than 175 pounds due to the small cockpit. They could only range between the ages of 25 and 40. Furthermore, the pilots needed 2,000 or more hours of stick time to be considered. Those with considerable experience piloting high-performance planes were given priority. Moreover, the CIA requested married pilots because single men were considered to be less stable in their decision-making process. As the candidates were screened, they were not told what the program entailed. All they knew was that it was a risky and top-secret endeavor. Recalling the experience, Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Francis J. Murray said, quote, "You didn't wear it like you do a fighter. You were stuck way up in the nose with a monster behind you." Black Shield planning. The Central Intelligence Agency was planning for a classified Asian deployment since 1965, as the U.S. considered spying on Chinese militant activists using the Oxcart project. This new mission was codenamed Black Shield during planning. It sought to use the A-12 from the Kadena Air Force Base in Okinawa, Japan. Black Shield would be conducted in phases, with the first sending 3 planes to Okinawa for 2 months twice each year. 225 personnel would be involved in Black Shield. The hope was that the gradual increases in the duration of the mission would lead to a permanent detachment at the base. The Director of Central Intelligence, Richard Helms, submitted a formal proposal to use the A-12 in May of 1967. He brought up the matter to President Johnson during a luncheon with high-ranking security advisors. He soon received the President's approval. An airlift to Kadena was launched the following day. The first A-12 flew non-stop to Japan on May 22nd, arriving after only 6 hours. The following A-12, 5 hours 45 minutes. After a brief stop at Wake Island, the third aircraft arrived on May 26th. The pilot experienced issues with internal navigation. The ambassadors and CIA chiefs of the station for Japan, the Philippines, South Vietnam, Thailand, and Taiwan were all briefed on the mission. Black Shield execution. By May 29, 1967, the unit at Kadena was in place. 260 crew members were deployed to the facility under the leadership of Air Force Colonel Hugh C. Slater. Their first mission was scheduled for May 31st. An A-12 flew over North Vietnam and again over the demilitarized zone between North and South Vietnam. Flying at Mach 3.1, 80,000 feet above the ground, the A-12 ventured for 3.5 hours. As far as intel went, the mission netted positive results. While the A-12 wasn't designed for hostilities in Vietnam, the war was raging by the time testing was complete. The high-altitude photography of the A-12 was incredibly helpful to the CIA. Indeed, this aircraft was revolutionary and unlike any other. Of the 190 known surface-to-air missiles in North Vietnam, 70 were photographed by the A-12, along with 9 other priority targets. The plane flew unnoticed by either China or North Vietnam. Between May 31st and August 15th, 7 Black Shield missions revealed that North Vietnam had no surface-to-surface missiles. 4 of these missions detected radar tracking by the enemy. However, the plane was never engaged. The CIA managed the missions from Washington, calling for flights daily, bearing in mind weather conditions. The base would be informed 28 hours before, and then receive additional confirmation 12 hours before wheels up. During those 28 hours, the pilots were briefed on the flight route and intended targets. At Kadena, 2 pilots were on call. The A-12 was given a mission, and another ready just in case the backup became necessary. All equipment was checked, cameras loaded. Another briefing would take place just before takeoff. Medically examined 2 hours before takeoff, the pilots were always prepared. If anything went wrong with the A-12, the backup would wait an hour and carry out the mission. Black Shield proved very effective. Due to the aircraft's 86-mile turning radius, some security experts worried the plane would be attacked just as it touched Chinese airspace. While it did enter a handful of times, no interception attempts occurred. Upon returning to base, the film was removed and sent by plane to a processing facility at the Eastman Kodak plant in Rochester, New York. Halfway through 1967, the U.S. Air Force in Japan began processing film so it could be expedited to military officials in Vietnam within 24 hours of each Black Shield mission. Nice girl. However, the A-12 would unfortunately be doomed by both politics and technological developments. After the U-2 plane incident, the United States halted unauthorized reconnaissance flights over the Soviet Union. That decision undermined the A-12's primary goal. Moreover, the development of the Corona spy satellites operated by the CIA introduced similar reconnaissance capabilities. Even if it produced pictures at a slower rate with a lesser resolution, the program did diminish political risk and pilot loss. Yet the Air Force remained invested in the A-12's airframe and capabilities. Therefore, it ordered the development of an interceptor version with side cameras that could gather intelligence without actually entering enemy territory. Lockheed responded by rolling out both the YF-12 and the SR-71 Blackbird. 6 feet longer than the A-12, the Blackbird was a two-seater with the requested cameras mounted and a capacity to carry 20,000 additional pounds of fuel and equipment. Still, financial circumstances forced the two airframes to compete for approval. Between the A-12 and the SR-71, the contest, codenamed Nice Girl, revealed that the A-12 could fly 5% higher than the Blackbird and could reach a maximum speed of 2,212 miles per hour, 20 miles faster than the Blackbird. However, the evaluators believed that the Blackbird's carrying capacity and more extended range outweighed A-12's benefits. The A-12 lasted only 7 months after Nice Girl ended.